All right. Well, good evening, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you're from or where you're coming to view our webinar today. My name is Tom Fanning. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Admission at Case Western Reserve University, and so happy to host our session today. But before we get started, I wanted to acknowledge the challenging situation we're all dealing with worldwide, and hope everybody is safe and healthy. We look forward to the time when we can safely host you on campus in Cleveland in University Circle. But in the meantime, though, we have an opportunity here through technological means to bring you some of the flavor of Case Western Reserve University. And we're kind of gratified today that it looks like at midday we had 157 students registered to join us this evening, and truly gratified that we're looking at students from 38 different states and countries around the world. We have China, Vietnam, India, Lebanon, Greece, Poland, and Mexico. And so welcome to everybody. We're happy that you're here. So today's session is titled Case Western Reserve Conversations, My First Job in Engineering. Our experience has been that Case Western Reserve University engineers graduate in really high demand in highly regarded engineering firms around the country and around the world. So today we're happy to introduce you to a couple of our recent graduates who are with us to provide some of the insights that they might have about their CWRU experience, and then also the experiences they had when they hit the workforce, when they hit their companies and hit their stride in their career trajectory. So I'll have a number of questions to facilitate the conversations, but we also will have the ability to field some of your questions using the question and answer button that you'll see on your screen. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Jonathan and Monica and allow them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about that background. So maybe I'll start with Jonathan first, and if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be great. Thanks.
Certainly. So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jonathan Healy. I'm a 2018 graduate of Case Western. I got my undergraduate degree in material science and engineering. And then I also, in my fourth year, did a master's of finance through the kind of combined program. I kind of came into Case not totally set on one engineering field. I knew I liked chemistry a bit more than physics, so I was leaning towards chemical engineering and material science. Ended up taking a freshman year course in research where it was awesome. You got paired with a professor and a grad student and got to do hands-on research as a freshman my fall semester. And from there, I was just in love with material science. Thought it was so cool. I'm also a very hands-on person, so I think that kind of won me over as well. But from there, I kind of just experienced a few different things. My freshman summer, I went to NASA Glenn Research Center, an amazing resource for Case students. I know a multitude of my friends got to work there both through the year and during the summers. I worked as a metallography and electron optics assistant. So basically kind of helping different high-level engineers at NASA perform a lot of the materials analysis on the various different really cool material systems they work on. I mean, one day we're looking at asteroids, actual asteroids that had fallen out of the sky, sliced up, had to look at all the different minerals and metals that were inside of them. And then the next day we're working on a shake table where they were going to test the Orion shuttle on, but had a failure. And they brought it into the lab and said, here, look at it. So really cool stuff. Sophomore summer, I worked at Boeing. I wanted to get a little bit of an industry experience. So I worked in their materials and process lab, dealing a lot with material failures, specifically to the CH-47 Chinook helicopter. It's like the dual rotor one, the really big one. So that was really cool, and also working on the V-22 Osprey. Also during that year, I was lucky enough to be awarded a SMART scholarship, which is a scholarship for service program put on by the Department of Defense. So in turn for them paying for my schooling, I was offered a internship at the Naval Surface Warfare Center, Carter Rock, here in DC, just northwest in West Bethesda. And that is where I currently work. There, I kind of work in a dual-faceted position where half of it is more applied type work. So it could be in-service work on ships. If we need to do a material analysis on the hulls of aircraft carriers to project out, how long the lifetime might be left, or with shafting or other critical components, we're there on the job. The other half is more R&D work. So what are the submarines in 2050 going to look like? And what material systems are we going to employ in those submarines to make them perform 10 times better than what we have right now? So that's my engineering experience kind of summed up really quickly.
So I just want to follow up on a few of those things. Wow, that's quite a resume in a relatively short amount of time. Are there other interests you had, other things you were involved in while an undergraduate student? And what did you do for fun? And I'm going to come to you in a second, Monica.
Certainly.
although as I hear you talk about that, it sounds like fun.
Yes. Believe it or not, it was much fun. I will say the hands-on stuff is great. Wasn't always a fan of the classes, not gonna lie. I'm also, probably wasn't the best student in the world, but I would say for fun, there were so many really cool clubs at Case. Something I never really realized until I was physically on campus at the Student Activities Fair and saw the 100 different clubs and what everyone did and how passionate everyone was that was in all of these clubs. So I came in, I was on the cross country and track and field varsity teams. So I did that for a year or two. I was also involved in the Undergraduate Materials Society. So it was basically an affinity group for the materials engineers and anyone interested in it for that matter. And albeit it was very connected to my field of interest, it was so much fun. We got involved with the professional materials chapters in Cleveland. So we would have on-campus dinners with a lot of professional engineers, a lot of great networking, talking with them about their positions. They would help us kind of understand, what do we want to do after school? I mean, it's a very important question. Just because I liked chemistry and reading through a chemistry textbook doesn't mean I was going to be a great chemical engineer or materials engineer. But being able to talk to the people actually working in these positions really kind of helped settle that for me. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was going to say, on the other side, you can do something that's totally outside of your realm. So I was involved with the investment club. It changed names while I was there. It's now called the Weatherhead Fund, but they basically take a part of the endowment, I think it's like $500,000, and allow the students to do their due diligence and advise the university where they'd like to put funds. So that to me is just something I've always found interesting and was something I was also able to participate in.
So John, that's very impressive. I just love your stories about all the things you were involved in. Monica, can we turn to you and hear about your story at Case Western Reserve as an undergraduate and then into your career path as well?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Monica. My hometown is kind of Cincinnati, Ohio, and I found Case kind of by proximity, but I grew up all over the world, and Case was one of those places where every kind of different community comes into one place and it feels very normal while you're there. And then I missed it once I left. So that was kind of how I found it. I found electrical engineering, which was my major. I graduated in 2016. I found electrical engineering just because I loved circuits. I was that one weird kid. Even within the engineering crowd, I think they're like the strange kids, and everyone always looks at the electrical engineers like we're all crazy because we love circuits. But I loved it because we spent a lot of time in the lab, and the same way that I think Jonathan likes materials because it's hands-on, I like to be in the lab and actually seeing the circuits and everything that I was building. So I found that, but when I was looking for universities, one of the things that I was really looking for was the right size. So being in Ohio, there was a lot of schools that were under 2,000 people, and I was kind of scared of those because they were too small. And then there was Ohio State, and I was scared of that because it was too big. And then I found Case kind of like a happy medium with its like 10,000 population, and it's really well integrated into the community of Cleveland. So that was like one of the things that I really liked about it, was that it wasn't segregated the way others are, and that we care about the community around it. So when I first started, I got really involved with the service fraternity, APO, and kind of got to know the neighborhood around Case that way. And then I joined a sorority because I realized I was an electrical engineer and that there weren't going to be that many females for me. So I found a really great community in there. But then I realized that being in a sorority wasn't enough for career advice necessarily. There was a total of one electrical engineer in all the preceding classes. So then my friends got the idea to start up a fraternity in case that wasn't enough. So it was an engineering fraternity called Theta Tau, which is on campus now and has started to be more established as a real thing. But that's one of the things that makes Case fun, is that you can just start up a bunch of different clubs and programs and everyone's involved in anything and everything. You guys are seeing just me and Jonathan, but almost every person I knew at Case was involved in 4 or 5 activities at minimum. And that sounds scary, but it was more just fun and different ways to stay involved. So as far as internships go, I did 2 internships with Procter & Gamble, the consumer goods company. My parents had worked for them, so I had already known about them. So I applied super early freshman year, and they just happened to take a chance on me. And then they sent me to the middle of nowhere, Maine, and told me to build tampons. And I was shocked. No, but it was fun. I was a process engineer for that summer, and then the summer afterwards, I did it at Gillette doing razors. So I got upgraded. And we were, it was good. I did electrical engineering for them, and then I kind of realized that manufacturing really wasn't for me. I'm just not a morning person, and manufacturing loves 6 a.m. So that's why you do internships. That's why you learn and you grow. And then I did another internship with Eaton, and that was during the school year. And so then I did more IT level work, and then that was really fun because I was doing classes and then doing part-time internship at Eaton. So I got to experience kind of best of both worlds and see what I liked. And that's when I found software. And then I moved into that world, and that's how I ended up in the current job that I'm in, where I am a project manager at a software company. I started off as a customer support engineer, so helping customers both in teaching them how to use our software to installing the software for them. It's a really complicated software and it's a struggle, so we did it for them. So it was a little bit of a service engineer, a little bit of a process engineer, a little bit of a tech support engineer, all rolled into one role. And then through all of those, I continued to keep getting over involved, as you can already tell that I have the tendency to do. And then they found project management and they were like, that's a good role for you. And now I'm doing project management. So that's my story.
So both of you have listed so many different internship and co-op opportunities that you were involved in. I have a question though. When you came in the door at Case Western Reserve, and both of you alluded to this a little bit, but were you confident that you knew what you wanted to study? And both of you said you had interests in engineering, but did you know exactly what areas of engineering you were interested in? And I think I might know this answer, but I'd love to hear from you. How did you clarify your ideas? Was it the jobs that you had? Was it research you did? Was the projects that you were involved in? Or maybe faculty members that inspired you? Monica, do you want to start? And I'll come over to you, Jonathan.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I got into circuits. So I was kind of going along the electrical path. But I have always kind of been one of those people where I'm like, you got to keep an open mind and see what finds you. So my dad was a mechanical engineer, my mom was an industrial engineer, and then my brother went computer engineering. So I was getting a lot of different pressures from them about which engineering was the best. And then I flopped them all and went an entirely different way. So I think that the type of engineering matters a lot for some people and matters less for others. For me, it was a lot more about learning how to do the problem solving, and electrical engineering was just the most interesting to me, and that's kind of how I followed it. And then once I learned that true electrical engineering, the manufacturing side wasn't really for me, I was like, all right, well, I still have all of this broad experience, like what can I shift to? And that's when I found software and found a really good home for me.
So now, Monica, were you getting advice along these lines, or were you figuring it out for yourself as you went through your different work opportunities and internship opportunities?
Yeah, I was definitely one of the avid career resource users. I was that crazy freshman that walked in with a resume and said, I don't have anything to show, but like my parents said, I need an internship. So I walked in and they were really nice. They helped me out. They set everything up. They do mock interviews and they didn't laugh at me when I laughed for the first 10 minutes of my own interview. So that was nice. And then as kind of the years went on, I found mentors kind of in my own role that made more sense. So I got really into the systems and control kind of world and ended up minoring in that. And so when I found teachers in that area that were really specialized, they were the ones that I would go to.
Great.
I really love the career services for sure.
So Jonathan, did you have a similar experience? We do have a specific question from one of our attendees about how do you find the internships at NASA and Boeing?
Mhm.
But can you talk about whether or not, and you did allude to this, but I'd like to hear it more explicitly. Did you come in with a definite direction, or if not, how did you come to the conclusion that you wanted to choose an area of engineering, and then you also have a business degree as well? How did that come about?
Certainly. So I would say, like any good engineer, was through trial and error. As I kind of already said, I was a bit more leaning towards materials and chemical, but wasn't really sure. Took a few classes in that field my freshman fall semester, and then was like, that's it, I'm done. This is the engineering I really like. However, I was really considering a finance degree coming in to CASE as well. That's part of the reason why I love CASE, is that you apply just to the school and then you can choose any major you want. And I also knew from other people, and I'd find this out throughout my time at CASE, that changing majors is very easy. One of my current roommates now, who is a CASE grad as well, his senior year as a materials engineer decided he wanted to go to med school. And alas, he has gotten into Rutgers Med School and will be going next year. So it's never too late to change your path, and that's kind of something I've always held on to. But for me, it was the internships. I kind of knew I wanted to get into engineering, and so I took it upon myself to look for internships my fall freshman semester, and that's how I got the NASA internship. I had done research with a professor who wrote me a good recommendation letter, and then I simply applied online. I think CASE does hold a special place in NASA Glenn's heart because it is so close and they've had many great students work there. And so luckily I was able to work there not only during my fall or my freshman summer, but also for the next 2 years during the year. I liked the government role, it was good, but I always kind of wanted to be on the more production end. And so that's where, again, I looked to industry to see where I could go. And I've always really been impartial to the defense sector. Always just found it very fascinating. And so kind of going back to my undergraduate materials society point, I was able to go to a few national conferences, all paid for by either funding from the school or funding given to the school through the society. And I actually was able to talk with the vice president of materials engineering, who I ironically at the time didn't know was the vice president of materials of engineering at Boeing until after talking to her, and then talking to a friend was like, do you know who you just met? And
well, you must have impressed.
yes, it was actually funny. I followed up with them afterwards, which everyone out there, make sure to follow up with the contacts you meet. And she gave me a special requisition number to apply for internships online. And through that, I was actually matched with the Boeing Ridley Park facility just outside of Philadelphia in the ideal position. I really liked that. And so that's where I kind of wanted to stay there, but obviously getting school paid for was kind of hard to turn down. And so that's why I'm at Carderock now. But speaking on the point, I liked engineering, but I kind of always realized I had other passions too. I've always been really interested in politics as well as business. And one of the events that I helped set up through the Undergraduate Materials Society was Congressional Visit Days opportunity through a National Professional Society. And so what we did was we got a group of 5 students, and for a weekend plus a day or two, we went down to Washington, D.C. and talked with congressmen and senators and their staffers about why STEM funding is important. And it was really eye-opening because a lot of engineering students don't realize that there are many different roles out there for engineers outside of the hard sciences. I mean, certainly many do work in a traditional setting, but there are many staffers, there are congressmen, there are professional witnesses, for example. And that kind of leads me to my last point, and I'll wrap up, is that I'm actually looking at going to law school, Harvard Law School here either next year or the year after. We'll see with the whole COVID shakeup. But I've been really interested in that field. And that was something that I could pursue even as an engineer. So long story short, there's a bunch of opportunities. You just got to try them and kind of see what you're really passionate about.
So engineers can go to law school as well.
Yes, something I didn't realize until I talked to the pre-law advisor my freshman year, because I thought it was a prescribed curriculum like med school. And she was like, absolutely not. She's like, if you want to go to law school, you should pursue it. Professor Terry Mester. I still actually was just talking with her yesterday about it. So
Sounds like somebody who served as a mentor and helped you along your path. I love that. So I have a question for both of you, and this is coming from our audience. I think half of the questions right now are whether or not, as a first-year student or in between first year and second year, there's an opportunity to hit the ground running on the internship possibilities. And can you tell me a little bit about that? You might have mentioned that in your intro, but were you guys involved in your first year and then into that summer when you were at Case Western Reserve? Monica, do you want to?
Yeah, I kind of hit the ground running just because I had an older brother who hadn't gotten an internship and watched how my parents yelled at him, so I was just terrified.
Little
I'd
parent
say
pressure there is always good.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's no pressure at all. I think most of my friends that were in engineering didn't do internships freshman year, and we all turned out pretty much the same. I liked it though. It was intense and scary, but yeah, I did an internship with Procter & Gamble at the tampon factory in Maine my freshman year. And part of that was because they encourage freshmen to go to the career fair, which is in like early October. And so as most freshmen are like running around crazy because you're just overwhelmed by campus life around you and everyone recruiting you and everything. But I just happened to walk in, happened to go to the P&G booth because I already had the knowledge about it, and they were open to freshmen. And I've known various other companies that are starting to get more into it. So it's definitely open, but it's not a pressured thing by any means. At least it wasn't when I was.
So there is a specific question here too, Monica, that you might be able to answer. It's about materials engineer. What exactly does a materials engineer do?
It's huge age.
I'll step in for this
Or
one.
is that more for Jonathan?
Yeah.
I mean, tampons are materials. I won't discredit that fact.
I work on the heating elements.
Also a material. So it's kind of a joke that as a materials engineer, I mean, anything that's really made of atoms is going to become a material, right? And so you can do, I mean, any realm of things. I will never forget the internships I saw, anywhere from a Disney Imagineer working on stage setup and prop design at the Orlando theme park, all the way to a Bose acoustic materials engineer for their Bose Sound Sport free headphones, all the way to, a steel mill. All of those involve materials. I mean, anything you can touch or handle is likely going to be made by a materials engineer. It might be a ceramicist, it might be a metallurgist, it might be someone in polymers. I know especially at Case there is the EMAC, the macromolecular department, I think is what it's called. There are a lot of companies in Northeast Ohio that recruit specifically out of the polymers department because there are so few polymers programs. And it is a rarity at Case that we have both a polymers program and a materials science program. So you do get a lot of opportunities to explore those venues there. But that would be my quick little bit on materials. It's anything and everything you really want it to be.
Great. So, go ahead, Monica.
I was going to say, I only ever touched materials engineering when we were doing like silicone design for circuits, and that was the hardest stuff I ever did. So good on you.
Yeah, so maybe I directed that in the wrong direction, but this is wonderful. We got the answer, so thank you. So we talked a lot about the different internships and companies you've worked for. Can you talk a little bit about some of the facilities or some of the opportunities you had on campus? Did you spend any time in ThinkBox, the Makerspace, or the circuits labs on campus? Can you talk a little bit about some of the resources you might have used while a student at Case Western Reserve?
Sure. So most of the spaces I used were in the white building, the good old material science building. But the labs there, I will say, were super accessible for freshmen all the way to PhD students. I mean, if you want to do research, the opportunities are there. It simply comes down to usually reaching out to a professor. I will say, unfortunately, the materials department tends to be a smaller department on campus as opposed to biomedical engineering. And so the professors are always looking for students that are motivated to do research. On the ThinkBox end, it was kind of newer, I would say, even when I was coming on campus. My first year was actually in the bottom still of White and Glennon, I think. It was kind of in between. So they hadn't fully moved it over to the nice spick and span area that they have it in now. But having been there and knowing a few more entrepreneurial friends that spent some time in there, it is an amazing resource. So much so that even I'm helping plan a national conference for ASM International, and we are hoping to utilize the space for essentially a pitch-like competition. But groups like NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, also will have seminars there. I know even the business department sometimes gets involved there because it is such a great makerspace, and there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit that comes out of Case because of it.
Good. Monica, how about you?
Yeah, with electrical engineering, we spent a lot of time I was always in the old ThinkBox that was in the basement, and I love that basement. We had, one of my favorite classes was doing something around, I forget the exact title, but it was basically how to do ethical hacking. And so it was a mix of electrical engineers, computer science kids, and a couple random physics kids that always seem to show up for some reason. And so the final project was that you basically just had to create whatever you wanted, and then you would hand that to the next team over, and then they would have to try to hack your project, and then you would get to try to hack the next groups. And so we created a robot that just runs away from you, like screaming and making the world's most annoying sound. And then it has like a big red button on it. And when you hit the button, it just gets louder and runs faster to piss you off, so that they couldn't actually try to hack it. So we printed all the parts for that in ThinkBox, and it was just like everyone in class was constantly doing things like that. So we had some fun.
So that's funny. So when you think about retrospectively, when you think about how you were prepared at Case Western Reserve, can you talk about your thoughts when you started your first day on your new job, your first job, official job after college? Did you feel prepared? Did you any lessons learned? Anything that you picked up as an undergraduate that helped you in your first experience in engineering? How about Monica?
Sure. So the first job that I really started in, the way that they train you so that you learn the product really well, is that I basically started in tech support. So no matter what I did, I was basically drowning, and most students are drowning. So it was a lot of fun. That being said, I was always it was me, and there was another Case kid who I had never met before, but we just ended up getting hired onto the same company at the same time and never knew each other somehow. And we were always generally more comfortable with it because Case does a pretty good job of preparing you. I think a lot of the other kids that I got hired on with were Berkeley kids, and they do a lot more lab work, but I think Case's like focus on troubleshooting, I guess is what I'm trying to say, was the really kind of great thing, is that was in electrical engineering. It was really obvious that you were almost never going to get the answer. The teachers were aware of that. They were like, look, this is what I'm studying. You're not going to answer this. Just do your best and see what you can get there. So that kind of mentality of just see how much you can grow, and they still kind of came out on the other end trying to help us out, was really helpful for preparing for that. And I mean, for me personally, being so involved in all the clubs and organizations, the communication skills that I got from running all the different campus events and everything was just priceless.
Do the things you learned or the skill set you attained or started growing while an undergraduate, do they continue for you, Monica? Do they help you in your next job? Are there underpinnings there that were really important to you if you think retrospectively about what happened?
Yeah, I definitely had a different path because I kind of studied hardware and then completely changed and went into software. But the good thing about CASE is that they try really hard to make sure that you're well-rounded. And so you take everything from the writing classes that every engineer kind of dreads to the like preparing classes to all the different kinds of engineering. So it never, even though I was an electrical engineer, like you feel like the same kind of engineering for most of it undergrad. And I think all of that really built in. And now the role that I'm in now, I'm doing a lot of like data analytical work. And so I'm having just flashbacks to the days that I was like swimming in MATLAB. And so that it has actually become applicable somehow again. But yeah, it's funny to see how it comes about.
Great. Now, Jonathan, how about you with the same question about retrospectively, with all the work that you did at as an undergraduate, did you feel prepared when you hit your official career job situation?
Yeah, almost too prepared. I mean, unfortunately with the government, everything is a bit slow moving, which I've come to learn when it took me at least 2 to 3 weeks before I could get a usable laptop at work. But that aside, the one thing I would say is that likely all of the students here have you've all gotten into great schools if you've gotten into CASE. There are going to be great professors. You're going to learn a lot in all of the classes. It's hard to really say that experience alone is going to be really differentiated in your work experience. For me, the really big difference, and what I would say the CASE difference is the experience I've gotten through clubs and the professional experience that I got while at CASE. The resources to both professors, alumni, and working professionals in the area were amazing. And to me, someone who didn't, if you want to go the academic path, it might be a bit different. I personally was more of, I knew I wanted to go into industry, and that's what makes a big difference, I think, especially early on. Being able to find a mentor, someone who's going to look out for you, because no matter what job you go into, there's going to be a lot that you don't know. There's a lot that aren't in textbooks, that can't be taught by textbooks or even the best professors. Soft skills are a good example, and maybe cliche at that. But to me, that was really the biggest difference. I've been able to, and in a lot of cases, more experience than a lot of my older coworkers in regards to conferences or outside opportunities that might not be directly tied to the material science of things, because that is very important to understand as an engineer, especially if you're in industry. You're likely working for a business, and a business has to at least be profitable at the end of the day. So you have to understand, where do you fit along this continuum of your larger business?
So this might be a question for Jonathan. One of our attendees has asked, wondering about how double majoring amongst different colleges of the university happened. Did you find it reasonable? Did you have enough time to do what you wanted to do?
Yes.
And
the easiest thing I've ever done. In fact, I didn't even plan it. I stumbled upon it during my junior spring semester. I kind of just finished all my classes up early and could have, if I really wanted to, have been done in 3 years. But I already had the government paying for my final senior year and didn't want to miss out on time with friends and whatnot. So I was kind of just planning on doing 2 business minors and kind of relaxing a bit and taking it easy. It was actually during my investment club meeting. Some of the graduate faculty came into our session and gave a presentation on the master's degrees that are available at CASE, and that you could do it as an integrated student, meaning that you're an undergrad still, but you get to take the grad classes and can earn your graduate degree at the same time. I like the week after was like, hey, your Master's of Finance program sounds really cool. Is there any way I could take like a class or 2 next year? She was like, why take a class? You could just get the degree if you wanted to. And I was like, really? But it's, spring, like there's only a couple more months, left in this semester. I'm surely you're done. They're like, no, we always hold a few spots back for students, undergrads at CASE that would really like to be involved in the program. And so the process to apply was simple. I didn't have to take the GRE because I was already a Case student. I simply had to write, I think, like a statement of why I thought that would be something I'd like to do, and then also get a letter or two of recommendation, I believe. There were no cost to it. My application fee, I think, which was already small, was waived. And I heard back in like 2 weeks, and they're like, we would love to have you. So that was my quick experience. I also did ironically apply to a master's in military ethics program, which they were also extremely accommodating. I think it was the first year it was being set up. And I would have loved to have done that, to be frank. Unfortunately, they didn't have it set up for integrated studies at the time, so I would have had to have graduated from undergrad and then become a full-time grad student. But at least from those experiences, to me, it seems super fluid and very easy to do if that's something you'd like.
And Monica, thank you, John. Monica, do you have any comments about majoring and minoring and cobbling together different academic interests you might have?
Yeah, I mean, I can comment on it briefly. I had electrical engineering, I was full, but there's a lot of people like Jonathan that if you have AP credits, like Case is really good about taking those usually, and that can help kind of free up your schedule. And so I had a lot of free time because of that, and that's how I ended up in strange classes. And so I didn't get a different other major, but I have a lot of different engineering friends that got accounting minors really randomly, and econ minors and random things like that. And like Jonathan said, I think that Case is really good about being accommodating for its students. And the nice thing is that you don't have to apply to the other schools. You can just take a class. So it's like I ended up taking a class that was like an anthropology that met in the dental schools. And I was like, what am I doing here? But it ended up being one of the most interesting like natural history classes. And it was with like a world-renowned natural history museum curator. And I was just like, oh, okay. And I just got to take it because I was a Case student. So
Well, that's a wonderful experience. Do either of you have any mentions of a favorite professor or a favorite class that you took? And Monica, you might have just done that, but always intrigued by the profound either professors who influenced you or projects or classes that you had. Any commentary on that?
That one was called Evolution of the Modern World, and it was just like a round table, and we would just sit and talk and have those discussions, which was really great to get from like an engineer's perspective. I don't remember that teacher's name, unfortunately, but my favorite teacher, Mario Garcia Sanz, is in the Systems and Control, and he is an amazing teacher in like sustainable energy and has done work like all around the world. And he's one of those people that just has like the inspiration for it. And he would like open up class with just like pictures of him near these huge satellites that you just couldn't tell. And he's like, that's me. And I'd be like, I have no idea what we're learning, but like, I love it. You're just so happy with your satellite that I'm willing to learn it. And then as the class went on, it got more and more hands-on. So it was about control algorithms. So he got a personal drone before they were just like everywhere, and it was he was like, this is $3,000 if you crash it. And then he turned the engine off, and then we had to design an algorithm that basically prevented the helicopter from crashing. And that was like our final, and it was the most stressful final, but it was so much fun. And he's just a great professor. I've kept in touch with him.
There was a $3,000 stake on that final, I guess, huh?
That was my fear. So I think I still have a video of it because I was filming it with my eyes closed. Like I just couldn't watch it happen.
Jonathan, how about you? Professor that changed your direction, or or a class or a project?
Mm-hmm. So I'll give two, one on the business side, one on the engineering side. The business side was pretty easy. There was entrepreneurial finance class with Professor Michael Goldberg. And it was so cool. It was kind of seminar style where every session, entrepreneur or a business leader or even a entrepreneurial finance lawyer would come in, and we would be given their company ahead of time. We would diagnose the situation that their company was going through at the time we were looking at. And then we'd have the, inventor or the startup team there to actually discuss what were the actual problems they went through in creating their startup. And to me, that was the coolest thing. I know he's still doing sessions now. Like there's a chief executive of Disney Corporation that's going to be speaking. There's several venture capitalists that'll be speaking through webinars, a few private equity as well. To me, it was just so cool because I didn't realize how many people could be tied into the CASE network. And it was like, whoa, they're right there. I could just like touch them. That's awesome. But from the engineering side, hands down, it was a grad class that I took called Failure Analysis of Materials with Professor John Lewandowski. To me, it just embodied what I believed engineering to be, where, you know, our final was literally a railroad car has gone off the tracks. You see the axle has sheared at a 45-degree angle. The wheel is 200 yards away, and it was moving at a velocity of 100 meters per second. Why did the car fail? And you're like, oh, what? How? I don't even know. And it's great because they don't give you anywhere near the information that you need, but that's what you have to do if you're investigating a failure. You're not going to have all the information. You have to go back to your fundamentals that you will learn your first day even on campus. I will not forget this. It was in the freshman year material science class I had to draw information from. And then you'll have to make inferences, just as you will in your professional career. And so to me, that was just awesome that in an academic setting, I was getting the experience that a real world engineer would be getting out in the field. And even my time here now in DC, I've gotten to go and visit the National Transportation Safety Board that investigates crashes such as like the Boeing disasters this past year, the bridge that failed in Minneapolis. I mean, they had a section of it there, which was incredible. But that's what they were doing there and hands-on. And lo and behold, I had done it 3 years prior in a small classroom in Nord Hall. And so to me, that was my favorite class, hands down.
So I want to, again, I'm watching the questions and I'm feeding them to you as they come through, but so this is nearing the end here, and I want to know if both of you could think about this. Do you have any words of advice for the future generation of Case Western Reserve University engineers? Profound advice. Not to put you on the spot or anything, but
for me, it's easy. Be involved outside of the classroom. If you want the internships, they're there, but they're not going to be given to you. Even if you have a 4.0 and you're stellar in the classroom and you talk to the professor and you go to office hours, you're still not going to get the internships. You have to go out there and make the connections. And they're easy to do at Case. I will say that. It's really not that hard, but you just have to put that effort in. And to be frank, those are going to be the most rewarding experiences. You know, it's great to ace a test. I certainly felt very accomplished, but the things I remember the most and what's helped me out the most are the people I met in my extracurriculars and some of the projects that I got to do outside of the classroom. So that hands down would be my advice.
And Monica?
Yeah, I mean, I'll pretty much double down on that. And I think, Jonathan, you mentioned it earlier, but the conferences, I love the conferences, not necessarily like even just the ones at Case, but on like obviously the career fair and everything, but the Society of Women Engineers, the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, men can actually go to the Society of Women Engineers too, but making those connections, like Jonathan said, like outside of the classroom and really kind of experimenting on everything is what's going to make or break your college experience. I mean, no one likes getting hard finals. Like we look back on these things now as funny, but like back then, like obviously they're hard and stressful, but all the internships, all of the job offers that I got senior year were all from conferences. So I would really recommend going to those, really recommend just getting involved on campus. And yeah, I mean, like Jonathan said, like Case is really nice because all the resources like are there, but learning to ask, I think, is that really hard thing. And that's the step that like you kind of have to do that. Yeah, it's hard, but you have to do it. I mean, my whole job now is literally asking everyone for favors. I'm a project manager, so no one reports to me, but I just ask everyone for favors all day. So Case was really good for that.
So you need those communication skills to be able to make the ask, right?
Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, many students right now are making their final college choice. Do both of you remember as a senior in high school, at the end of your senior year, making the college choice? And could you, and maybe you've alluded to this a little bit, but one more time, can you remember how you picked Case Western Reserve University? How about Monica?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you guys can't do the overnight visits, but that was what solidified it for me. I showed up at Case and everyone was just amazingly welcoming. I did other college visits and I think everyone kind of treats the high schoolers kind of like that, but Case really is just kind of overly friendly and that personality. So that really solidified it for me, just going on campus and seeing everything. But it was the same thing, kind of just talking to everyone and having that conversation, you know, like you could go up and have a conversation with Babs, the president, and she would just sit down and have that chat with you. And that's kind of why we're having these conversations with Case. And so I think you can see that Case cares about having those conversations more than most. And I think a lot of that is due to the size, like I mentioned. So it's not too small. It's big enough that you get to meet new people every day and it doesn't feel stale, but it's not overly large where it's a struggle to get involved. So it's that perfect little sweet spot.
Wonderful. Jonathan.
Yeah, so I definitely remember it. I applied to Case and many other kind of similar schools like Carnegie Mellon, University of Rochester, I think like my state school, University of Buffalo. And I will say I was kind of indifferent on the schools. They were all like pretty comparable, and Case really was very generous in the amount of scholarship I got, and that really kind of propelled me there. Also from the fact that the cross country coach was very receptive. I knew I loved athletics. I've always felt that it's helped me become a better person, both in the classroom and outside. And so that really set me there. It also didn't help that Carnegie Mellon only gave me a $500 loan and told me it was going to be $59,500 a year, but I'm still not salty about that. So that's fine. But all in all, it's hilarious because I've heard it many times that things tend to work out for a reason, and it certainly did with Case, and that I can't imagine any other experience. It was by far extremely rewarding and not a thing I would change about it.
So both of you have moved to different parts of the country, and ideally you come back for reunions and to see your friends and faculty members. And so just kind of wrapping up here, if you get back to campus, what places would you like to go? Where would you want to go in Cleveland or on campus when you get back to visit? You have a favorite place?
So
yeah, I want to see ThinkBox. I'm like, y'all made me jealous.
Seven stories of makerspace with a lot of the machine tools that you'd love to use, huh?
Yeah.
My favorite, this is probably gonna be the most college answer, but there's a beer fest that was started in Cleveland, and it's been a tradition with my fraternity brothers that even though one's in San Francisco, few in Toledo, and now I'm in DC, that we always journey back in January to go back. I even scheduled my LSAT around Beer Fest to make it back. But aside from that, definitely check out Barrio and open a location on Southside. It is fantastic. I am so jealous of $3 tacos because here in DC, it feels like a taco is $30. So definitely take advantage of that. And then Sokolowski's. The Polish Inn right on the river by Progressive Field is amazing. The food scene is definitely underrated in Cleveland, in my opinion. So those are my favorites.
Right, I agree. People just don't know that, but Cleveland has a lot of great restaurants and places to eat. So, well, let me check one more time to see if we have any questions that we haven't addressed in the course of our conversation. I really appreciate your time and sharing your Case Western Reserve experience. And I want to thank all the attendees for listening. Hopefully this gives you a glimpse into what life could be like if Case Western Reserve becomes your choice. So thank you, John, and thank you, Monica. And again, we appreciate your time and staying engaged with the university. It's a great place to work, and we hope everybody finds it a great place for school and to stay connected with through their lives and careers. So thank you very much.